We'll go over study problem 4-7 from our textbook, page 133 now. The givens first. So we are provided with operating profit margin, sales, and total assets. For our first problem, we are being asked to calculate the total asset turnover ratio. So that ratio is equal to, well, obviously it would be sales over total assets. Sales, check your formulas, over total assets. Well, our sales figure is $10 million, and our total assets stand at $5 million. So therefore this would be 2, and because it's a turnover, it's times. That's the unit. So we are done with the first part of the problem. Well, now in the second part. So in the second part, things are a little bit more involved. So the company president now, the management, sets a goal for total asset turnover of 3.5. Currently it is only 2.0. So our goal is to increase that total asset turnover. And in order to achieve that, we have only 2 options. So we either increase our sales or we decrease our total assets. There's no other way out. And it looks from what's given in the problem that the firm is planning to increase its sales by just keeping its assets fixed. So how can that be achieved? Well, obviously we will use the same formula. In that case, our total asset turnover goal is 3.5. That thing should be equal to the new sales, but that's the new one, so I should probably put an N here in front. That's the new sales, keeping total assets fixed at $5 million. Well, it's quite easy to solve this now. All we do is we just do cross multiplication. So when we do it, we should get that new sales equals 3.5 times $5 million should give us $17.5 million. So we need to increase sales all the way to $17.5 million. Now the question is asking for the increase in sales, so therefore increase in sales equals the new sales, basically new sales minus the current amount of sales. So new sales is, well, sales has to go up all the way to 17.5 million, whereas currently it's only at $10 million. So therefore the increase in sales is, well, in order to achieve our goal is $7.5 million. We need to increase sales by this amount. As a percentage, that's also another thing mentioned. So we need to write down the sales both in dollar terms and as a percentage. So let me just add a little bit more space underneath here. So therefore, the increase in sales as a percentage would be percent increase in sales equals, well, that increase which we calculated to be $7.5 million divided by the previous value of $10 million. So, oops, okay, that would be equal to a positive 75% increase, and that would be the answer for part B. Now in part C, things are a little bit different. So, well, actually it's the same thing, except that we are being asked to find operating return on assets. Well, let me open a new page for that one. So this is for part C, operating return on assets, equals, well, there are 2 ways we can approach it. So you can either solve the problem straightforward, so you can say operating profit divided by total assets, but then you stumble upon the fact that, Well, we don't know what operating profits are. So let's change our approach slightly. Well, we are given our operating profit margin in the problem. So using that operating profit margin, we can calculate the operating profit, plug that in, and then solve the problem. Or let me provide you with an alternate way, which is kind of fun to do it that way. So the first method is obvious. I mean, so you can solve it the long way. But alternatively, let me just show you what we can do. I can rewrite this fraction as follows. So I can write it as operating profit over sales times sales over total assets. Can I do that? Yes, of course I can, because sales will simply cancel out and all we will be left will be the first one. But then look at the first ratio. That's simply the operating profit margin. And look at the second ratio. That's simply your total asset turnover. This is your asset turnover. But we were provided with those initially, right? So if you recall, we had operating profit margin was 10% and total asset turnover was 2. So therefore our operating return on assets will be 10% times 2 for a 20% operating return on assets. Well, so we are done with operating return on assets with our current state of sales. But now, assuming sales increased and we have a new total asset turnover, which is achieved, in which case we achieve our goal of 3.5, we can find the operating return on assets, the new operating return on assets, I should say, new, let's write it like that, operating returns on assets equals, so we already know that this thing is operating profit margin, and that thing didn't change really. The only thing is we have new goal, we can call it new asset turnover, or you can say goal asset turnover ratio, turnover. And well, our operating profit margin is 10%. Yeah, so that one is, you know what, I'll just write it as in decimals. So and total asset turnover, the new one, is 3.5, and multiplying these two will give me, I believe, a 35% operating returns on assets, if in fact I can achieve my goal. And that would pretty much solve the last part of our problem. So we are basically done with the 3 parts of our problem. To summarize, in the first part we calculated the total asset turnover ratio. In the second part, in part B, we calculated how much sales should be increased to achieve a goal returns on assets, asset turnover ratio. And finally, in part C, under both situations, we were able to calculate operating returns on assets. So that completes our solution, and we are done.